Welcome to Viewpoints. I'm Heather Isvaron, and with me today is Mr. John Pistole, Administrator for the Transportation Security Administration. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure, honor to be here.
And it's nice to have you out in Monterey, away from DC. And we just wanted to take some time with you today, ask you a few questions about your vision, the strategy for TSA, and where we're going.
Sure. Well, again, thanks for the opportunity. If I could take a moment, there's a couple of reasons I'm here in Monterey. One is to be here for a graduation of a class which has 29 students in it receiving master's degrees, and 7 of those students are TSA employees. So it's a great opportunity for us in partnering with Naval Postgraduate School as a way of encouraging and enabling our employees to become future leaders in TSA and perhaps elsewhere. I'm also doing some other things here at the Monterey Airport, a small airport, one of the 450 around the U.S. that TSA has responsibility for providing security at, because we're testing out a new system with the Department of Defense on a card reader where we can use different ways of differentiating people that we know and trust in some respect and try to provide a different type of screening experience for them. And so several things that I'm here for, but appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent. So getting back to that, you mentioned the new policy for trusted travelers. That sounds like a very far-reaching policy, and just wondered, who do we trust?
Yeah, and that's one of the questions that we wrestle with since 9/11, and something that we've been looking at since I became the administrator about a year and a half ago, in July of 2010, where we are trying to say the one-size-fits-all construct may not be the best way forward. So it served us well for 10 years in terms of preventing any terrorist attacks in the U.S., but we think there are some opportunities for evolving, for moving on beyond that, so we can use information about people that they voluntarily share. And so we have this initiative that we call Risk-Based Security Initiative, RBS, within TSA we refer to it, where we do just that. And so we have several aspects of that, which I'd like to share with you a little bit.
Sure.
So one is what we call TSA PreCheck, which we have 5 airports that are actively involved in that now, with 2 more, LAX and Minneapolis, St. Paul, coming on in the next several months. And what that involves are people who are part of the Customs Border Protection's Global Entry Program, where they have signed up, paid a fee, gone in for an interview, and submitted to a criminal history background check. They are then afforded expedited return to the country when they've been overseas. We are recognizing those people in these certain airports, and if they happen to be a member of one of the airlines that we're dealing with at present, where we can provide an expedited physical screening for them because we've done pre-screening of them before they ever got to the airport based on what we know and they've voluntarily shared. The other part of that are people in at least 2 airlines right now, and we'll be adding 2 others here shortly, but with American and Delta, certain frequent flyers who have voluntarily, they've opted in, they've agreed to share information with us, so we can make more decisions about them before they get to the airport, so we pre-screen them, if you will. So when they get to the airport, what we are doing is we have a dedicated lane set up for them, so there's no long waits. And then we allow them to keep their shoes on, first time in 10 years in the U.S., since Richard Reed in December of 2001 tried to blow up the plane. And then we also allow them to keep a belt on, a light jacket, keep their laptop in their briefcase, keep their liquids aerosol gels in their carry-on bag. So we do an expedited physical screening for them because we've done more on the front end, pre-screening. And the benefits for us is that it allows us to reduce the size of that haystack that a terrorist may be hiding in, the needle in the haystack analogy, so we can focus our efforts on more those that we know less about or that we know the most about because they're on a terrorist watch list. So that's part of what we're doing. With the key of all this is our goal is to provide the most effective security in the most efficient way. We've thus far screened about 150,000 people at Atlanta, Dallas-Fort Worth, Miami, and Detroit airports. And what we have found is that we are able to do a more effective job more efficiently and receive very positive feedback from travelers who obviously appreciate that opportunity to share information in exchange for the great likelihood of being expedited. And I say the great likelihood because we will always reserve the right to do random and unpredictable screening, primarily to keep terrorists from gaming the system. And we have a number of other things that we have as safeguards in there, but that's part of what we're doing.
So it sounds like you've really had an evolution of the agency to really listen to what's going on the ground and changing everything around. So it's not just one size fits all.
Right. It is really redefining who TSA is as an agency and how we go about doing our business. So it is a significant paradigm shift in terms of national security for the U.S. because we are able to do more with intelligence on the front end, and then with technology, both in terms of how we can use checkpoint technology, but also just on what we can do. For example, there's a program we call Secure Flight, which just went operational in November 2010. And what that allows us to do is for the U.S. government to maintain the information in the terrorist watch list as opposed to the individual airlines, which had a disparate impact because of all the separation of information. That's all brought together now. So I start my day every day with an intelligence briefing along with the senior leadership team of TSA, where we have a look ahead at the people who are traveling to the U.S. Or within the U.S. And we can see who are selectees off the watch list, who are no-flies, who should not be flying, and then can we take actions, make sure there's federal air marshal coverage, for example, on those flights where the selectees are flying, or is there something else going on that we can inform the rest of the law enforcement or intelligence community to say, do you know that there are 3 selectees going to the same city this weekend, and how we can share that information as part of the intelligence collection cycle.
Well, it's incredible because of your experience, 27 years in the FBI, and with that, the expertise you have in counterterrorism. So I have to ask you, why did you take the job?
Well, it's obviously an opportunity to continue using some of that experience in what I saw as a meaningful way. You probably know, and your viewers know, that I was actually the 3rd nominee for the position, and frankly wasn't paying a whole lot of attention while I was the deputy director of the FBI for nearly 6 years. But when I was asked to consider taking this, it's something that I thought about, prayed about, and tried to get a sense of whether that would be something that I would be willing to take on. And I saw it really as an opportunity to take on a new set of challenges and opportunities for a relatively young agency created 2 months after 9/11, and really trying to help improve it to a high-performing organization with a counterterrorism focus, and to support the broad, fairly expansive workforce, over 60,000 employees, including the Federal Air Marshal Service, who engage the public in a way that I know of no other agency or even private business, because we meet and encounter approximately 1.8 million people every day in the U.S., so over 12.5 million every week, 50 million plus every month, over 625 million in the last 2 years. And sometimes, every once in a while, we'll have a situation where somebody complains and it goes viral, if you will. And it's something that I know of no business or government agency that has 100% customer satisfaction, just every day, day in, day out, 365, 24/7. So our goal is to provide the most professional transportation security screening, do it in a way that respects dignity and privacy. At the same time, make sure that everybody else on that flight knows that everybody else traveling with them has been thoroughly screened. And so we work on those issues, and that's our challenge, because unfortunately we know that terrorists are still trying to cause us harm, and they just have a fixation with aviation, both passenger and now, as we've seen in the last year, with cargo. 2 packages, as we know, coming out of Yemen destined for Chicago that would have been catastrophic but for critical human intelligence that a foreign security service provided. It gave us the tracking numbers off the 2 boxes. That's the type of tactical intelligence that we live for, unfortunately very rarely have, but it's in that partnership that we are best able to do our job.
And I like what you're doing with training and education. And I think that's really important for a long-term strategy for a professional workforce. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Now, there's a number of things that we're trying to do, Heather, and our arrangement agreement with Naval Postgraduate School is one of those where we seek to create opportunities for those employees who have the aptitude, the leadership potential, and have demonstrated excellence in what they've done to help us prepare for tomorrow and the next generation of TSA employees. We're also wanting to create a TSA Academy that would enable us to provide a centralized, uniform, consistent level of instruction, not only for new hires, but for recurrent training and enhanced training and educational opportunities. So we're engaged in several discussions about that with existing facilities to try to really up the game, if you will, to increase the opportunities for TSA employees, both personally and professionally, in their pursuit of other educational opportunities.
And so with that and moving forward towards a more customer service and professional organization, as young as it is, can you tell me what keeps you up at night?
Well, I usually sleep pretty well. I'll say that because I have a great deal of faith and confidence in the professionalism of the workforce who are out there, and anybody who has ever questioned how a security officer at a checkpoint does, I would ask them just to spend a few minutes behind an x-ray machine looking at the carry-on bags that are going on to try to distinguish between, for example, the other day we had a cell phone, looked like a cell phone, but it was a stun gun that was designed as a cell phone. If somebody could discern between the two based on an x-ray, then my hat's off to them. So the security officers have a very challenging, a demanding job that takes a lot of focus and attention, and they have a great sense of ownership and responsibility for making sure that nothing happens. So what I am concerned about is if there's somebody out there, particularly here in the U.S., who may be a clean skin or a sleeper agent, if you will, somebody that hasn't come up on anybody's radar overseas or here and is able to get to an airport here in the U.S. with a type of bomb, an improvised explosive device that is non-metallic that we saw on Christmas Day 2009 with Abdul Muttalib, and that person goes through a walk-through metal detector that has no chance of picking up on a non-metallic device, and unless there's some other layer of security that we are able to detect and deter that person, then they get on a flight and cause catastrophic failure. So that's what I'm concerned about. We also have responsibility, as you may be aware, for surface transportation security, working with state and local agencies that have the first line responsibility. But because of the open architecture of most trains and buses especially, and what we've seen overseas with a number of dozens of successful attacks overseas in the last several years on trains and buses, how can we best leverage the resources of the federal government with those state and local resources to make sure that we have some deterrent effect and some layers of security there that perhaps not as rigorous as aviation because of that open architecture, but still give us the best opportunity to detect and deter a possible terrorist.
It's an amazing portfolio of responsibility, and the fact that you all are interfacing with the American public probably more than any other agency that I can think of. It's pretty
Probably
incredible.
So, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have, like I say, those 1.8 million opportunities every day to make sure we are providing the best possible security in the most professional way. And one of the best things that the traveling public could do, it can do, is go to our TSA.gov website. There's a number of helpful tips, especially for infrequent, for example, holiday travelers who may only travel once a year or once every few years and may not have a good sense of what's expected or what they could anticipate. And so we have a number of useful tips and hints as to, yes, you can do this, but you can't take this. And unfortunately, every day here in the U.S. This year, we have found on average between 4 and 5 handguns in carry-on bags. Just recently, we had a gentleman with a handgun in an ankle holster that he said he forgot about as he's trying to get on a plane. And so, now those aren't terrorists. I'm not concerned about them doing something bad on the plane. But it's at the same time, can you imagine if you sat down next to somebody and who didn't look like a law enforcement officer because of age or something else, and you see an ankle holster, you'd think, okay, what did TSA do on this one? What did they miss? And so that's our challenge. How can we provide the most effective security in the most efficient way?
And what would you advise a large part of our audience are university professionals that have had maybe some experience in law enforcement and public safety, but they're trying to better themselves, get advanced degrees, and what would you say that TSA could offer them in the future?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of things that we can do in partnership in terms of how we go about doing our business, which can help them, for example, just in the national security arena. We are doing a number of outreach initiatives for large groups of people that may have special needs at checkpoints. And there are some in the university community who may have awareness of and want to engage in some of those dialogues, the colloquies that we have, the quarterly phone calls or meetings that we have. So I'd encourage anybody with an interest in one of those to participate. As part of our risk-based security initiative, we are looking at different categories of people that we know and trust, whether because they have a security clearance, for example, or because they're willing to volunteer information about themselves, that we can make some judgment assessments. But we're always open to new and innovative ideas. In fact, the three things that we are focused on in 2012 for TSA are innovation, partnerships, and a commitment to the pursuit of excellence. So we know that out of the university setting, there are often great ideas that can help us do our job within the government. And so anybody with suggestions, ideas that can help us in that regard, I'd be most interested in.
Well, we appreciate your partnership with Enable Postgraduate School and look forward to the collaboration in the future.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you.
Okay.